So 300 to 400,000 realtors are expected to leave the business in the next, call it 1 to 3 years. But I want to talk about the agents that are going to stay in the business. They're going to win big. They're going to win big. I'm going to outline 6 different reasons why the agents that stay in a shifting market. Some markets are already in a buyer's market. Most are more or less in a neutral market. I'm going to make an argument why those agents are actually going to make more money in a slower market than what we've seen coming out of this crazy seller's market. And so I think a lot of agents that we talk to are so nervous about this market shifting, because the reality is most agents that got into the business, I mean, there's this huge spike over the pandemic where from, call it 2020 to 2022, 2023, there were so many people that got into the business, and they're only used to selling real estate in a really hot market. They're only used to getting a listing and putting that thing on the market and it's selling within a day or two with tons of offers. This is all they've known for a large portion of the real estate agent demographic. That's all they know. If you haven't sold real estate for more than 5 years, you only know house goes on market, I get multiple offers, and I look like an absolute genius.
Oh, that's so funny. I mean, it follows like a trend. You look at like the stock market, right? Everybody gets in as it's climbing. Everybody's buying. Everybody thinks that it's only going to go ever up. And then when it gets down, the tide goes out and you see who doesn't have their shorts.
And so the thing with this conversation right now, as agents start to transition and say, okay, I really do want to build a listing inventory. We just launched the Listing Agent Toolkit, right? This is everything an agent's going to need to build a 6-figure listing agent business. All the tactics, all the strategies, all the techniques. So if somebody's watching or listening to the podcast right now, you want to get your hands on that, there's a link in the description. So the first point is exactly that, is that, because there's been so many people getting into real estate, if we lose what most expect that we are going to lose in the next 1 to 3 years, if we lose 400,000 to 500,000 realtors, that brings us down to, call it 900,000, between 900,000 and 1 million real estate agents coming out of 1.5, 1.6, which is a lot of fat that's going to be trimmed off of this industry. Well, less competition. Yes, there's a lot less sales right now, but the reason why it's so difficult is you have a lot less sales and you have all these realtors. So if you can hang in there, if you can make this thing work, you're going to find that there's a lot less competition over the next year or two. It'll really open up the opportunity for the agents that stick around. Now, that's just the start of this, though. Like having less agents, okay, fine. Because I think that most people would say, well, dude, that doesn't change the fact that there are a lot less transactions. I mean, Brandon, I'm dying out here. I get it. I understand. I got a lot of things coming in this conversation that I'm going to speak to that very thing and what we have to look forward to. But yeah, I mean, having a lot less people in the business, the experts believe that a lot of the part-timers, the people that are in real estate as a hobby, that all those people that got into this business to sell a couple homes on the side, make some extra cash, they'll all be removed from the business. And the only thing that will be left are people that are full-time, that maybe full-time, maybe part-time, but this is a career decision. You know what I mean?
That's right. Yeah. And who's that going to benefit most?
Yeah. Well, and that's going to benefit the consumer, number one, right? The consumer is going to be left with dealing with professionals again, which brings me into point number 2, which is because things have been so easy for realtors where anybody could list a house. I mean, you could get your real estate license in a weekend, right? Go out there and list a house the very next day after you leave the testing center. And you could look like an absolute genius. And it's like, little cousin Johnny can do this. That business ain't very hard, which is why so many people were getting into the business in the first place. It's crazy.
It is crazy. I'm sitting here laughing to myself. I saw this interview with Max Homa, who is a professional golfer. And he's a professional golfer. He rides a lot of Ubers. And when he gets in the Uber, the Uber drivers always ask him, what do you do? Right? And he always says, I'm a real estate agent. And he said when the market was really hot, he started getting people asking him like, oh, I want to get into real estate. What should I do? What should I do? And he's like, I had to stop using that line because so many people wanted to get into real estate. And I'm not a real estate agent. I didn't know how to answer that question. It came coming up. So I had to pick a different thing to say that I do for a living.
Oh, that's
which is
so
funny. But anyway.
No, that's good. I mean, and so here's the point. The point is that when the market shifts, it becomes more difficult to sell homes. And so what does that actually mean though? Why is that a benefit? Well, because here's what we know, and there's all the studies already point to this, that when it becomes more difficult to sell a home, that the consumer's perception of the value realtors bring to the market increases. And when that increases, so does the average commission. So here's what has happened for years and years and years and years. In a hot real estate market, you have a bunch of competition, which we just talked about. You have the perception that, man, this is pretty easy. Anybody can stick a sign in the yard and sell this thing. And so what happens to realtor commissions? They go down as a result. Because like, this thing ain't very hard. I'm not paying you all this money to do that. Well, now times are more difficult. You start to see all these reports from Redfin talking about price reductions skyrocketing, inventory skyrocketing, expired listings skyrocketing. You see for sale by owners, they can't sell on their own like they could in a hot market. And so the true professional who knows how to position properties, how to get them on the market, how to navigate this market to actually get them sold are the ones who get paid. And so sellers are going to start looking for a real professional to get their properties sold. And those professionals, this is why I'm so excited, can start to command their worth once again. Because it was difficult. You know, you go to a listing appointment and you're going up against all these newbies who are like, oh, I'll do it for free, or I'll list your house for $100, or I'll list it for 1%. And they would put the house on the market and they didn't know their head from a hole in the ground. But somehow it was not them, it was the market. You know, when you had inventory as low as we had it, and there was 20 buyers for every one house on the market, you didn't have to know shit to be an amazing, what the consumer believed to be an amazing agent. You know what I mean?
Absolutely. I think also now it's going to be a time where you have to be really good at setting expectations, communicating, because you've got to get ahead of this. Because if not, you are going to get caught, because they're going to ask for updates. They're going to ask if you overpromise, the timeline stretch. This is already a really stressful process for the consumer. So you've got to be really good at setting those upfront expectations about what is about to happen. And if it doesn't, how you guys need to pivot and adjust. And the people that are best at that are the ones that are going to be able to make the most money and actually be the one that benefits from the entire process.
Yeah. What I believe is about to happen is that we're going to get into what I call the professionals market. And so when homes are harder to sell and the consumer's looking for an actual professional, they start to interview agents again.
Yeah.
You know, they don't as quickly as they have been, just hire anybody to sell their home. They start to think twice. You know, maybe it's not the best thing for me to hire, cousin Johnny to sell my home. Maybe I should keep family and business. Maybe I should keep those separate because, or maybe they've hired little cousin Johnny and he just isn't getting the job done. That's what is really going to start to happen, which is going to bring me in point 3, which is more expired listings. So it's not just that, expired listings offers more listing opportunities, but the consequence of expired listings, meaning what is the opportunity when we have more expireds? It's because more and more amateur realtors who don't know what they're doing can't get it done. And so when that happens, the consumer, to my point earlier, starts to really say, okay, wow, we probably need to hire a real professional. We need to get an agent who really knows what they're doing. And that changes the entire dynamic for the professional listing agent who knows what they're doing to go and have a conversation with the consumer. And that consumer's perception of the value that's being delivered increases.
And that starts with, I think, those calls, those outreaches. If you really know what their pain is, what they're going through, and you can touch on that, then you're going to get the opportunity to sit down in front of them and present yourself as a professional.
That's exactly right. And then the next point is, unlike a hot seller's market where for sale by owners, the thing is, I built my business, I built my career on for sale by owners. Most agents that have been working with me for a long time originally came to me because of my own for sale by owner course.
Sure.
And it's how I built my business. And I love for sale by owners. However, for like the last, I don't know, call it 3, 4, 5 years, I haven't talked much about them because they all sold on their own, right?
Yeah.
A large percentage of them in a seller's market. This is where you see all the iBuyer stuff and all these, flat fee this and discount brokers. They all come into the marketplace when the market's really, really hot. And then when it slows down, you see them all leave, right? The same thing goes for sale by owners. The reason why I'm so excited is that in a slow buyer's market, these homeowners who are super optimistic about being able to sell their own home, they don't sell like they used to. It becomes, heck, most realtors can't sell their own listings, let alone a for sale by owner who hasn't sold a house in the last 27 years.
If ever,
that's going to Home Depot, grabbing the little wooden for sale by owner sign. They're not going to be able to sell the way that they were. Again, opening up the opportunity to serve a demographic that for the last, call it the last 3 to 5 years, has been very difficult for realtors. You bring up, I can't tell you how many times in a coaching call I'll ask a realtor, are you working for sale by owners? They're like, I haven't called a for sale by owner ever. It's like, no, I don't want nothing to do with them. And I get it. It was really difficult. That's about to change like crazy. Yeah.
And all the agents that through this whole cycle have been calling expireds too. It's just, that's going to take off as well.
Yeah.
It's exciting.
So this is the biggest opportunity. The biggest opportunity is when interest rates come down, and they will come down. All the forecasts suggest that by the end of 2025, that interest rates will be near 6%, 6.1, 6.25. And then getting into next year, when there's a 5 in front of that interest rate, and this market completely unlocks, and you have only 1 million realtors and interest rates with a 5 in front of them, and home sales start to soar like crazy, I'm telling you, in 2026, 2027, could be some of the biggest bounce back opportunities for the agents that stick this out. This is what I'm the most excited about right now. The agents that are building a seller lead pipeline, agents that are focused on showing up as a leader in the marketplace, the ones that are actually helping the people navigate through these difficult times are going to be the ones who win very, very big in the next 2 years. I'm telling you.
That's right. And it's the people that start now building that pipeline and all those people, and they have their own custom list of people. So when that flips, they can just call the right people, have the right follow-up conversations versus starting from scratch. Those are the people, just like any cycle, that try and when things start to get good, they get in. It's too late.
That's right. Because when that happens, you'll start to see all these people get back into real estate. And to your point, it will be too late. All the people that are sticking out right now are going to win big. They have already had the pipeline that's now maturing into actual listings, while all the other people are like, oh, let me get back into this business. It looks so sexy, and they're too late to the game.
Right.
And then the 6th point is that in a slower market, you have more opportunities to leverage your listings. And so this is a big one, because in the past, you didn't really have any time to leverage the listing to service the neighborhood or to build more opportunities or to meet anybody. It was selling.
That's right.
It was selling so fast.
Yeah. Through 2 days, 3 days on the market, it goes on a Thursday. It's like you don't even have time to do the open house.
That's right.
Right? Because it's gone by Saturday.
That's exactly right. So now it's not like you don't want your listings to sell quickly, but naturally in a slower market, days on market increases. So, okay, what can you do about that? Well, now you have more time to do your grand opening events. You have more time to do open house events. You have more time to communicate in and around the surrounding areas of your listing to meet future sellers. And again, it's not such a turn and burn business model. It's like you can secure a listing and you can leverage that listing in the right way, in the way that we teach other agents to do, that turn into more listings. And I'm not an advocate for agents working with buyers, but agents that work with buyers, oh my gosh, is it so much better for them? I mean, it is so much better to work with a buyer in a buyer's market. That's what they call it, a buyer's market, because you're not having to run out, house hits the market at Saturday at 4:00 and you got to drop everything to go show the home because it's going to sell that afternoon. That's a whole nother podcast.
Yeah.
But I mean, it's way better for agents that are just working with buyers. And so that's why I'm so excited is if these agents can stick this out, if they can double down on their prospecting, which I know is a big ask, right? I know I can't even get agents to prospect for an hour, but if I can get agents that are really serious about this to double down on their prospecting right now, this is pipeline building season. If they can double down on their prospecting, yeah, it's slower. So you have to work harder.
That's right.
These agents are so used to this easy money. And not to mention, this market requires you to be an expert. Mm-hmm. It requires you to know the market. It requires you to go out there and study the inventory. This is what the market pays you for. The days of, again, just sticking the sign in the front yard and then selling with multiple offers, they're over. Yeah. But if you will learn the market, you'll double down on your prospecting efforts, you can win big in this business. We have clients right now that are doing the best that they've ever done as competition starts to fall left and right, and they're starting to rise because of the work they've put in the past.
Yeah. I think too, when it's super hard, like in the past, to get a for sale by owner and expired because there's so many agents, so much competition, the ones that have been sharpening their skills the entire time, once all those people drop off, they'll have the pipeline and they'll have the skill. They'll know how hard it used to be. So they'll be able to push just a little bit harder. They'll have a little bit better skill and process than people that are just getting started. And they're going to win big on all of those opportunities.